It's another day and another Hall Effect gaming keyboard has arrived. And this one comes with some very bold claims. This is the IQUINIX EZ63 Hall Effect keyboard, also available as a 60%, and it's unique from all the Hall Effect keyboards I have tried. They claim that their keyboard is one of the fastest, even outperforming the Wooting 80HE at Computex. And I'll tell you now, it embarrasses the Wooting 60HE in some areas. IQUINIX even provides the receipts to prove this, which I'll go through later. Immediately, IQUINIX presents you with a load of accessories to sweeten you. You get a carrying case which you can fit a mouse in, so it's got some practical use. And inside the case is a high quality keycap and switch puller, a brush, spare keycaps if you use a Mac, spare switches which are Gateron magnetic jades, stickers, one of those snazzy coiled cables which I believe only exist because they look cool, and an Allen key to take the keyboard apart, which I will also be doing later, as their design is actually pretty interesting. But first let's take a look at the switches and I'll do a sound test after. There's a choice of two switch types of this keyboard. You can either have the Gateron magnetic jades or IQUINIX's version, which is the Gateron star trails. These feel very smooth and they don't have that scratchiness that I felt with the lacquer switches on the Wooting. The Star Trail switches just feel like they are more refined and have less rattle, which vastly improves the typing experience and even when playing with it. And the feeling of this keyboard is improved further by its quality. Most 60 to 65% keyboards that I've seen and used are tray mounted, which means the main guts of the keyboard are screwed into the case. This can make the keyboard feel a bit stiff to type on, but it's a cost-efficient option and it's easier to make. The EZ63 and 60 is using a gasket mount, so the main components are held in place with these silicone mounts. This kind of mounting creates a bit of a cushion and removes some of the harshness when bottoming out a key press. Despite this, it's still rather stiff. You can see there's very little movement here. But enough of this, let's take it apart. Thankfully that's kind of easy. There's just 8 screws for this keyboard that need to be removed, which are located in these aluminium side walls. The screws are going into these aluminum rails that are on the top and the bottom of the keyboard, and this is where the gasket mount is. When you remove both of the sides, everything just comes apart. You have a bottom plate with a wire that goes into the PCB and some pour-on foam on top of that as well. There's also some dampening foam in between the PCB and the top plate. Putting this back together is an experience. I don't know what the issue is, but sometimes these screws just don't seem to settle back in properly, even with the side walls lined up. I found putting the top on first and fitting a couple of screws and then doing the bottom was slightly easier. These top and bottom rails have a very thin groove that the bottom case goes into, which it can slide out of, so it can be a bit fiddly. With this design though, it should be easy to clean, as you can just remove one of the sides and just tilt your keyboard to allow the flow of degeneracy spill out onto your desk, and then you can just brush away your filth. Now let's get to the sound test. I am using my camera microphone for this because I just find that the big chunky microphone makes this sound unnatural, but you can hear a significant improvement over the 60HE. This is because of the higher quality materials that's being used here, and I think also the more stable and smoother switches. Quality wise, this thing blows away the 60HE completely. It's a higher quality and well made product that results in it feeling amazing to type and play with. You might be able to get the 60HE to sound and feel better or similar to this, but you'll have to mod it, which will cost you a lot more. This is completely stock. But just like with all Hall Effect keyboards, there's still one final hurdle. And I'd say the biggest challenge that all Hall Effect keyboards face, and that is the software. And regrettably, in the software department, IQUINIX have pooped their pants. My experience has been nothing but frustrating for many reasons, so let me walk you through some of them. I also experienced an issue that's not related to the software but bricks the keyboard altogether. This software is all online only. On the main page you select English, but then there's still parts that are in Chinese. The first section is key map, which looks rather similar to VIA. I'm not a fan of this layout as there's no explanation of how anything works here. The performance section has the main features we're looking for. There's a fixed actuation mode. This is just changing the actuation point and it would operate like a regular non-rapid trigger keyboard. Then there's the recommended settings option, which gives you some default difficult setups if you're not used to rapid trigger keyboards with low actuation points. This is actually a good addition for people who aren't used to these kinds of keyboards. Then you have RT mode, which is where you turn on rapid trigger, and some of this is in Chinese. There was a time when it was all in English, but it changed at some point. Maybe it's my fault for not being bilingual. This layout is needlessly confusing. Looking at this layout, you'd think that rapid trigger is on. The first number is the actuation point that has no relation to the fixed actuation mode, by the way. Underneath that is the reset point for rapid trigger, but this tab needs to be in the on position for it to actually be turned on. And this doesn't affect the layout on the top. If you want rapid trigger on certain keys, so for example if I want it on 1 to 4 and WASD, there's no visual difference telling me that I've done that. You have to click on each key individually to see which one has rapid trigger turned on or not. Now there's pre-actuation protection distance. I don't know what its purpose is for obvious reasons. Then you have the press actuation distance, so this is your actuation point. The release distance is the sensitivity of the rapid trigger. There's an option to turn on super rapid stop, which will reset the switch after just 0.05 millimeters. And lastly, you have bottom out protection distance, which I guess will add a safe zone from 4 millimeters to whatever distance you set it to, where the rapid trigger won't take effect. Next, there's a lighting section. Great. Then there's a professional preset section where you can use the same presets as professional players out of the 8 that are currently available. There's testing as well to test stuff, but it's pretty bare bones. It just shows you your inputs. It doesn't show you the distance of the key press. There's no information on software updates either. It gives you instructions on how to perform a software update, but doesn't tell you where you get them from. And really, this needs a software update. And the software needs a software update. This is below SteelSeries and Synapse. Okay, this issue I'm cutting in because it's a bit of a weird one. If I put on the Windows lock, the keyboard will work, the Windows lock will work, but then after a set amount of time, the keyboard will just stop working completely. So I'm putting a timer up, I'm going to press Windows lock, and I'm going to sit here and wait until it does it. So Windows is working, sorry, the Windows key's working. I can type. I'm going to press FN and the Windows key. I know it's turned on because the caps lock will flash. You can't see it at that angle. And I'm going to start the timer just so you can see the keyboard's still working. And the Windows lock is functioning. There. It's done it. 1 minute and 27 seconds. And I can't type, so it won't work. And I unplug it. And it's reconnected. Types. But the Windows lock is now turned off. It does happen. I'm not crazy.
I am not crazy.
Some of the other Hall Effect keyboards I've tried haven't had the best software, but it did the important parts like setting per key actuations and adjusting rapid trigger easily and clearly. This does the base stuff, but it doesn't do it well. I think an important part of rapid trigger keyboards is making changes easily to cater to your preferences. Often you'll experiment with settings whilst playing, and this keyboard can't do that. And it makes this keyboard very frustrating, because playing with this has been amazing once it's all been set up to my liking. It feels really responsive, and the quality components make this a joy to use and also highlights the shortcomings of the 60HE. IQUINIX also shared a datasheet showing how it outperforms the 60HE head to head. I'll link this in the description. And they also said things like SnapTap, Rappy Snappy and other features are going to be supported in the future. But with the current state of the software, I just can't recommend it, but I really want to. It costs around $179, which I think is around $5 more than the 60HE, and from a hardware standpoint you're getting the best of the best. However, from a software and firmware standpoint you're not. To put my words into a mediocre at best meme,
We were on the verge of greatness. We were this close.
this might be worth keeping an eye on in case there are significant improvements made to the software. I'd recommend checking out our Discord, as I'll likely provide updates if my opinion changes at all. Until the software and firmware get some much needed attention, it's another case of Wooting still clears, good video, smiley face. But if things like gaming keyboards and Hall effect are a bit overwhelming for you, there's a video on screen now that should help you.